This isn't your home anymore." Melissa's words hung in the air like a toxic vapor. I stood frozen in the living room, still dressed in the light blue blouse I'd chosen with such tender care for my 67th birthday. The lavender perfume I dabbed on earlier now felt suffocating, a heavy shroud. But "today's my birthday" was all I could manage, my voice thin, a mere wisp of sound. Melissa tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a crisp, familiar gesture she made when she was determined to see something through, no matter how unpleasant. "Precisely. We thought it would be a good time for you to start fresh." I looked at David, my only son, waiting. For what? A defense? A flicker of a smile that might signal this was all some elaborate, cruel joke? But he just stared at his shoes, as if their laces held the secrets of the universe, utterly lost in their mundane mystery. I felt the floor drop out from under me. This house, the one I'd helped renovate with the money from selling my own home. The bedroom I'd built on the first floor, custom designed for my aging knees that couldn't handle stairs anymore. 5 years I'd lived here. And now, on a day meant for celebration, I was being discarded. "Grandma!" Marcus's voice ripped through the heavy silence. My 9-year-old grandson burst into the room, clutching a colorful piece of paper like a treasure map. "I made you a birthday cake." The drawing depicted a joyful, if crooked, cake with candles and a huge, sprawling heart that consumed almost the entire sheet. Behind him, little Chloe, 7, trailed in, clutching a daisy plucked straight from the garden, its roots still clinging to a handful of earth. Melissa moved swiftly, stepping between me and the children like a human barrier. "Marcus, Chloe, Grandma's busy right now. Go to your room." Then the unexpected happened. Marcus looked at his mother with a seriousness I'd never seen etched onto his freckled face. "But it's Grandma's birthday. We made a surprise in my room. Come on, Grandma." He grabbed my hand, completely oblivious to the coiled tension in the air, and pulled me down the hallway. Chloe skipped along behind, the daisy swaying wildly with each buoyant step. "Come on, Grandma. Come see." You must be wondering how I arrived at this precipice. How a mother who dedicated her entire life to her only child ends up being ousted from her home on her own birthday. And how 2 small children manage to shift the entire trajectory of a life in mere minutes. Let me rewind a bit. My name is Barbara Miller. I taught math for 35 years before I finally retired. My husband, Frank, was an accountant and passed away 5 years ago from a sudden heart attack. We'd been married for 4 decades. It wasn't a storybook marriage. Whose is, truly. But we built a stable, loving life and raised our only son, David, with all the love we had to give. David was always a sensitive boy. I remember him at 6, his face streaked with tears because a bird had flown into the living room window. Frank used to insist he needed to toughen up, but I always defended his gentle nature. Perhaps that was my greatest misstep, protecting him too much. When he met Melissa in business school, I instantly recognized her as his polar opposite. Practical, fiercely decisive, with a future meticulously mapped out. "She's going to eat our boy alive," Frank remarked after their first dinner with her. I scoffed at the time. I truly believed opposites complemented each other. Their wedding was 12 years ago. An elegant affair, far more tailored to her family's opulent taste than ours. I vividly recall Melissa subtly correcting David's posture during photos, constantly smoothing his tie. Small gestures that, at the time, I dismissed as the quirks of a perfectionist bride. When Frank died, I felt adrift in our 3-bedroom house. Well-meaning neighbors arrived with casseroles I barely touched. It was David who eventually suggested I sell the house and move in with them. Mom, it doesn't make any sense for you to rattling around alone in that huge house. Come live with us. Marcus and Chloe would absolutely love having Grandma around. At the time, it felt like the perfect solution. I sold our house for a good price and used a portion of the money to help with their home renovation, constructing a dedicated first-floor suite just for me. The rest I carefully tucked into savings for my old age. Your financial cushion, as Frank had always called it. The first 2 years were genuinely good. I cared for the kids while they worked. David at the accounting firm he'd inherited from his father. Melissa as a marketing manager for a prominent retail chain. I baked cookies, spun endless stories, and took the kids to the park. I felt needed, truly a part of the family. The changes began subtly, like a slow tide eroding the shore. First came the comments about the children's upbringing. Barbara, I'd prefer you not give Marcus chocolate before dinner. We're trying to control his sugar intake. Or, Mom, Melissa thinks it's really better if you don't tell Chloe those scary stories. She had nightmares. Then, the spatial restrictions. Would you mind not using the living room when we have clients over? And, Barbara, your plants are taking up quite a lot of space on the patio. I began to recede, trying to occupy less space, make less noise, to simply be less. My world gradually shrunk to the confines of my 150-square-foot bedroom. Sometimes I'd spend entire days in there, venturing out only for meals or when the children returned from school. Marcus and Chloe were always my unwavering rays of sunshine. Even when Melissa began strictly controlling our time together, the kids need to study, Barbara. They found ingenious ways to sneak into my room. Marcus would bring his dinosaur books for us to pore over together. Chloe would earnestly ask me to braid her hair, just like you used to do with my old dolls. A week before my birthday, I overheard a heated argument between David and Melissa. I was in my room, but their raised voices sliced through the walls, sharp and clear. We've already decided this, David. Your mother needs her own space, and we desperately need ours. But she has nowhere to go, Melissa. She has money from the house sale. She can rent a small apartment, or look for one of those senior communities. On her birthday? Can't we wait a little longer? The longer we put it off, the harder it will be. And her birthday is symbolic. A new beginning for her. I froze, the words chilling me to the bone. They were planning to send me away? Like an old, out-of-style piece of furniture that no longer fit their curated decor? In the days that followed, I played the part, pretending blissful ignorance. I observed Melissa's studied avoidance of my gaze during breakfast, David's perpetual busyness, always too engrossed to meet my eye or engage in conversation. The children, however, were different. Conspiratorial whispers in corners, abrupt silences whenever I entered a room. And then my birthday arrived. In Marcus's room, a scene I'll forever cherish awaited me. A small plastic table, the kind they used for drawing, was draped with a tablecloth I recognized from our kitchen placemat set. On it, a small chocolate cake, its frosting proudly, charmingly, dripping down the sides. 7 candles flickered. 1 for each decade, Chloe proudly explained, and 1 for good luck. Around it, painstakingly handmade cards, a colorful paper garland strung clumsily but lovingly, and even an improvised vase holding the single daisy from the garden. "Surprise, Grandma!" they shouted in unison. I collapsed onto a chair Marcus had thoughtfully pulled for me, tears streaming down my face, hot and unchecked. "Don't cry, Grandma," Chloe said, her tiny fingers gently tracing the tear tracks on my cheek. "It's a party." "They're happy tears, my love," I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion between sobs. Marcus, serious as a miniature adult, explained. "We asked Aunt Becca to buy the cake. Mom couldn't know because it was a surprise. Becca, my niece, my sister's daughter who lived in Portugal but had moved to our town a few years back with her husband, Mark. She'd always been thoughtful, visiting regularly, but I'd never imagined she held such a close, clandestine bond with the children. As we ate the crookedest, most delicious cake of my life, my cell phone vibrated. It was Becca. "Aunt Barbara, happy birthday! Did the kids manage the surprise?" "Yes, dear," I replied, struggling to control the tremor in my voice. It was absolutely wonderful. There was a pregnant pause on the other end. When Becca spoke again, her voice had shifted, a serious undertone replacing her usual cheer. "Aunt Barbara, I heard about the conversation. The kids told me their parents were planning to ask you to leave." I felt a flush of shame creep up my neck and burn across my face. Even the children knew I was being cast out. "Mark and I talked," she continued, her voice soft but firm. "Our house has that guest room we hardly use. Would you consider coming to live with us? It would be a joy, a genuine comfort to have you close." I looked at Marcus and Chloe, their faces smeared with chocolate, smiling at me with such pure, unadulterated love. In that instant, a profound truth settled within me. Family isn't just about who shares our blood, but who chooses to love us, truly and unconditionally, when we need it most. "Becca, I don't know what to say." "Say yes, Aunt Barbara. The kids have already agreed to visit you every weekend, and our house is only 15 minutes from theirs." While I was still reeling, trying to process that breathtaking, unexpected offer, I heard footsteps approaching in the hallway. Melissa appeared in the doorway of the room, David trailing awkwardly behind her. Her gaze swept, cold and assessing, from the improvised table to my tear-streaked face, then landed accusingly on the cell phone clutched in my hand. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her voice meticulously controlled, the one she used when barely containing a furious temper. Marcus, with a bravery that swelled my heart, stood up, placing his small body between me and his mother. "It's Grandma's birthday. We had a party." "Who are you talking to?" Melissa asked, completely dismissing her son's explanation. "To Becca," I replied, finding a wellspring of strength I hadn't known I still possessed. My voice, though still quiet, held a new, unyielding resolve. "She's inviting me to live with her and Mark." I saw something flicker across Melissa's face. Relief? Annoyance? A blend of both, perhaps. It was hard to tell. David finally spoke, his voice barely a murmur. "Mom, can we talk about this later? Today's your birthday." I looked at my son, this man I'd carried in my womb, whom I'd taught to walk, to read, to be kind. This man who now couldn't even defend me on my own birthday. "Yes, David. We can talk later. For now, I'm rather busy celebrating with my grandchildren." I refocused on the phone. "Becca, dear, I'd love to. Thank you." When I hung up, Marcus and Chloe enveloped me in tight, fierce hugs. Over their small heads, I watched Melissa pull David from the room, shutting the door behind them with a soft click that felt deafening. "Aunt Becca has a dog, Grandma. Did you know?" Chloe said. her eyes shining with pure delight. His name's Popcorn, and he's all white and fluffy. And her house has a backyard with a huge oak tree, Marcus added, his voice brimming with adventure. We can build a fort there when we come visit you. As they chattered, a strange, potent mix of pain and hope washed over me. My son's quiet rejection still cut like a knife, but the boundless love of those children and my niece's profound generosity were like a soothing balm, healing the fresh wound. 3 days later, here I was, packing my life into boxes. I didn't have much. Clothes, a few beloved books, Frank's faded photographs, some cherished keepsakes that fit into just a few cartons. David seemed relieved I'd found a place to go, but a shroud of shame clung to him. He helped me load the boxes into Mark's car, muttering about how we'd see each other all the time, how nothing would really change. But we both knew, with a certainty that hummed unspoken between us, that everything already had. The kids promised to visit every weekend. Marcus pressed his favorite dinosaur toy into my hand, a green plastic T-Rex, to protect me. Chloe drew a picture of our new family. Me, her, Marcus, Becca, Mark, and Popcorn the dog, all holding hands under a smiling, benevolent sun. And I, despite the lingering ache of rejection, felt a strange, quiet peace settle in my bones. As if at 67, I was finally about to turn a pivotal, liberating page in the book of my life. Tomorrow, I'd begin my new life at Becca's house. It wasn't the path I'd envisioned, but perhaps it was exactly the one I needed. After all, sometimes you need to be pushed out of one place to find another where you're truly, unconditionally welcome. And who knows what the future holds. This story, I knew, was far from over. When I arrived at Becca and Mark's house that afternoon, I felt a tumult of emotions I could barely name. Relief, sadness, expectation, a sliver of fear, all blended together like watercolor paints bleeding on a page, indistinct yet potent. Mark carried my few boxes inside while Becca gently guided me by the arm, as if I might simply fall apart at any second. Aunt Barbara, this is your room, she said, opening the door to an airy sunlit space with windows overlooking a vibrant garden. We put that armchair you always admired in here, and made sure there's plenty of space on the shelves for your books. The bed was covered with a patchwork quilt I recognized instantly. My mother had made it decades ago. Becca noticed my surprised look. Remember? You gave it to me when I got married. I thought it would look beautiful here. I couldn't hold back the fresh wave of tears. It was such a simple gesture, yet so profoundly meaningful. A tangible piece of my history, lovingly woven into this unexpected new beginning. Here comes a puppy! A white furball burst into the room, a blur of motion, leaping animatedly around my legs. This is Popcorn. He already knows you're going to be the new source of treats around here. Mark chuckled, his laughter warm and infectious. That first night was strange. After 5 years sleeping in the exact same room, the sounds were subtly different. The whisper of wind through the backyard trees, the steady tick-tock of a wall clock in the hallway, Popcorn's occasional yelp as he dreamed of chasing phantom squirrels. I lay awake for hours, mentally replaying the events of the last few days, trying to grasp how drastically my life had veered. The next morning, I woke to the comforting aroma of fresh coffee and the soft hum of music drifting from the kitchen. For a moment, I was disoriented, until Popcorn nudged the door open with his nose and bounded onto the bed, showering my face with enthusiastic licks as if we were long-lost friends. Good morning to you too, fella, I said, a genuine laugh bubbling up despite myself. Looks like you're the official welcoming committee. I got up, slipped on my robe, and followed the inviting scent to the kitchen. Becca was at the stove, preparing breakfast, humming along with the radio. "Morning, Aunt Barbara. Sleep well. I made those cheese rolls you taught me, remember?" The first flashback hit, sharp and clear, as I nibbled on a still warm cheese roll. Suddenly, I wasn't in Becca's kitchen anymore, but 25 years ago, in my own familiar kitchen. "Aunt Barbara, are you okay?" Becca's voice gently pulled me back to the present. My eyes were brimming with unshed tears. "Yes, dear. Just remembering when I taught you to make these cheese rolls." She smiled, settling into the chair across from me. "I never forgot. I made them for my college friends, for Mark when we started dating, and now for you." "Thank you," I said, the words carrying a weight far beyond the simple appreciation for a cheese roll. The days melted into weeks, and slowly, imperceptibly, I began to settle into the new routine. Becca worked from home as a translator, and Mark left early for his engineering job. I began to find my rhythm, my purpose. I tended the garden, which had been desperately neglected, made lunch on days Becca had tight deadlines, and took popcorn for leisurely strolls around the leafy neighborhood. On the first weekend, as promised, Marcus and Chloe came to visit. David brought them, but he didn't come inside, claiming he was late for an appointment. The same old excuse. The children barely registered his hurried departure, too engrossed in exploring the house and yard with popcorn. "Grandma, come see! We already started the fort in the oak tree!" Marcus yelled from the backyard. Mark had tied some ropes to the lower branches and draped an old sheet, creating a shaded secret space beneath the majestic tree. Chloe was already inside, meticulously arranging some cushions. "This is our new secret clubhouse," she explained with solemn seriousness. "Only people we let in can come in. And you can come in whenever you want," Marcus added, taking my hand. "Because you're our grandma forever, no matter where you live." Those simple, heartfelt words touched me deep in my soul. I sat with them in the improvised fort, listening to their grand plans for future upgrades. A tiny bookshelf, twinkling fairy lights for when it got dark, maybe even a cozy rug. When the afternoon waned and Melissa came to retrieve them, David apparently had some unavoidable commitment. I noticed how she carefully avoided looking directly at me. The children said goodbye with tight hugs and fervent promises to return next weekend. "Grandma, don't forget to water our fort," Chloe instructed, as if the sheet structure were a living plant that needed tending. "Don't you worry, my love. I'll take good care of it until you come back." After they left, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, watching the sky begin its slow, magnificent transformation into the hues of sunset. Becca joined me, sitting in comfortable silence for a few minutes. "The kids love the fort," I finally commented. "Mark's planning to build them something more elaborate," she replied. "Maybe a real treehouse." I smiled, imagining the unbridled joy of my grandchildren. They're the absolute light of my life, you know? Becca hesitated for a moment, then asked, her voice gentle. "Aunt Barbara, are you truly okay? Deep down?" I considered the question for a long, quiet moment. Was I okay? I'd been rejected by my only son, cruelly kicked out on my birthday, forced to entirely start over at 67. And yet, I'm finding my way, I answered honestly, looking out at the twilight. It hurts, I won't lie, but I also feel like I'm breathing freely for the very first time In a very long time. The second flashback hit that night, as I was organizing some old photographs in a box I hadn't unpacked yet. I placed Frank's photos on the nightstand in my new room. His face looked different to me now. No longer a painful reminder of what I'd lost, but a powerful echo of what I had always been. Strong, resilient, utterly capable of starting over. The following week, I received an unexpected call. It was David. "Mom, how are you doing?" "I'm good, son. Adjusting." There was an awkward silence before he continued. "I need to stop by to drop off some documents that came for you." We agreed he'd come the next day during his lunch break. I hung up the phone with my heart thrumming, a nervous flutter in my chest. It would be the first time we'd talk alone since I'd left. When David arrived, Becca discreetly slipped away to her office, leaving us in the living room. My son looked utterly out of place, standing awkwardly in the middle of the room, clutching a plain envelope. "Sit down, son," I invited, gesturing to the couch. He sat on the very edge, perched as if ready to bolt at any moment. "I brought your mail. It's from the bank." I took the envelope but didn't open it. Instead, I looked at my son. Truly looked at him. He looked exhausted, with deep, bruised circles under his eyes and a tension in his shoulders I didn't remember ever seeing before. "How are you, David?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. "Me? I'm fine. Busy with work, as always." "And the kids?" His face softened a fraction. "They miss you. They talk about you constantly. They came to visit this weekend. Mark's building a treehouse for them." David nodded, looking away, avoiding my gaze. "That's good." Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy with unspoken words. Finally, I gathered my courage, plunging directly into the heart of it. "Why, David?" He knew exactly what I was talking about. His shoulders sagged even further, a visible surrender. "Mom, things were complicated. Melissa felt we needed more space, that the kids were growing. And you? What did you feel?" He glanced at me briefly, then his eyes darted away again. "I just wanted everyone to be happy. At the expense of my happiness. It wasn't like that." He protested weakly, the words hollow. "You seem good here. Becca and Mark are attentive. The house is nice." "I'm good now," I agreed, my voice quiet but firm. "But you kicked me out on my birthday, David. Do you have any idea how that made me feel?" He didn't answer. I continued, the words pouring out like water from a dam that had finally, irrevocably burst. "For 5 years I tried to take up less space, make less noise, to just be less me. Also, I wouldn't bother anyone. And even then, it wasn't enough." "Mom, it's not that you were bothering us, it's just..." "It's just what, David? What flimsy excuse do you tell yourself to justify what you did?" He ran his hands over his face, looking suddenly, painfully older. "I don't know what to say, Mom. I'm so sorry. Truly." I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, whom I loved more than myself, and felt a complex mix of pain and profound compassion. He looked as utterly lost as I'd felt on that fateful day. "You know what hurt the most?" I asked softly, my voice barely a whisper. "It wasn't leaving the house. It was you not defending me. It was you staying silent while Melissa said that wasn't my home anymore. On my birthday." David finally met my gaze, and I saw that his eyes were glistening, brimming with unshed tears. "I failed you. I know it." Just then, Popcorn came tearing into the living room, a joyful streak of white fur, leaping onto the couch between us, effortlessly breaking the suffocating tension with his goofy canine energy. David chuckled, surprised, and ruffled the dog's head. "That's Popcorn," I explained. "He thinks he owns the place. He seems friendly. He's good company." David glanced at his watch. "I need to get back to the office." I stood up to walk him to the door. Before he left, he turned to me, hesitant, vulnerable. "Mom, can I come with the kids next weekend?" I felt a lump form in my throat, hot and tight. "Of course you can, sweetheart. This house is always open to you." After he left, I stood on the porch for a long time, watching the quiet street. There was no instant forgiveness, no magical resolution for the deep ache I carried. But there was perhaps a tiny fragile beginning. My third flashback hit a few days later, while I was watering the plants in the garden. I snapped back to the present at the sound of the phone ringing inside the house. It was Chloe, calling from Melissa's cell. "Grandma, guess what? I won an award at school. I drew a picture of our family and the teacher said it was beautiful." "Congratulations, my love. What did you draw?" "I drew everyone. Me, Marcus, Daddy, Mommy, you, Aunt Becca, Uncle Mark, and Popcorn. My teacher said I have a big, beautiful family." I smiled, imagining Melissa's reaction to seeing I was still very much included in her daughter's concept of family. "Grandma," Chloe continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Mommy's different." "Different how, sweetheart?" "She's sad. She cries in the bathroom when no one's looking. Daddy's sad too. They fight when they think we can't hear them." I felt a squeeze in my chest, a pang of concern. "Sometimes adults go through tough times, Chloe. Is it because of you? Because you left?" The question caught me completely off guard. "No, my love. These are grown-up things that have nothing to do with you or Marcus. But will you come back someday?" I closed my eyes, feeling the immense weight of that innocent question. "Chloe, right now I live with Aunt Becca and Uncle Mark. But that doesn't mean I'm far from you. I'm always here when you need me." "Okay," she replied, seeming to accept my explanation. "Mommy's calling for dinner. Bye, Grandma. Love you." "Love you too, my sweetie." When I hung up, I kept thinking about the conversation. Trouble in David and Melissa's marriage? It wasn't entirely surprising. I'd always noticed a certain quiet tension between them, even before I moved into their house. Melissa was relentlessly controlling, and David, though kind, often seemed suffocated by her expectations. In the days that followed, I tried not to dwell on it. It wasn't my business anymore, after all. I focused on my new life. I helped Becca organize her sprawling library, started attending a book club at the neighborhood library, and even signed up for a gardening course offered by the community center. That Saturday, as planned, David brought the kids. To my surprise, he didn't leave right away. "Can I stay a bit?" he asked almost shyly. "Of course," I replied, carefully hiding my surprise. The kids immediately dashed out to the backyard with Popcorn, eager to check on the progress of the treehouse Mark was building. David and I stayed on the porch, quietly watching them. "You look well," he commented after a few minutes of comfortable silence. "I am. Finding my footing." He nodded, looking down at his hands, twisting them nervously. "Mom, I need to tell you something." Something in his tone, a new vulnerability, put me on alert. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Melissa and we're getting a divorce." Even though Chloe's words had subtly prepared me for something like this, I still felt the impact of the news, a quiet shock. "Oh, David, I'm so very sorry." He shrugged, a gesture that tried to seem casual but couldn't quite mask the deep-seated pain. "It's been coming for a while. I think you leaving was just the last straw." "What do you mean?" David sighed deeply, a sound of profound weariness. "After you left, things just got worse between us. I felt guilty. She felt, I don't know, maybe validated? Like she'd proven she could make definitive decisions about our family. We started arguing about everything. The kids, money, work. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Truly. The worst part is..." He hesitated, clearly choosing his words with immense care. "I think I feel relieved. It's awful to say, isn't it? But it's like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I thought about how I'd felt in the past few weeks. The sharp pain of rejection mingled with a strange, exhilarating sense of freedom. It's not awful, David. Sometimes we need distance to see things clearly. The kids are confused," he continued, his voice heavy. "We're trying to explain it has nothing to do with them, that we'll still be their parents, just in separate homes. They're strong and smart. They'll understand in time." David looked out at the backyard, where Marcus and Chloe were laughing, chasing popcorn around the sprinkler, their joy unburdened. "Mom, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but the kids are going to need stability in the coming months. Would it be too much to ask for you to be there for them?" I felt tears well up, hot and unexpected in my eyes. After everything, my son still saw me as a safe harbor for his children. "I'll always be here for them, David. And for you, too." He looked at me with deep gratitude, and for a fleeting moment, I saw again the little boy who'd run into my arms, scraped knees and tear-streaked face when he got hurt on the playground. "Thanks, Mom." That night, after David and the kids left, I told Becca and Mark the news during dinner. "I'm not entirely surprised," Becca commented, her expression thoughtful. "I always thought there was something forced about their marriage." "Melissa always seemed very controlling," Mark added, nodding. "The few times we saw them, I noticed how David seemed different around her. Less himself, you know?" I nodded, reflecting on how my son had changed over the years of his marriage. The idealistic, sensitive young man had slowly, imperceptibly, become increasingly quiet, more resigned, a shadow of his former self. "What do you think will happen now?" Becca asked, her gaze steady on mine. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "But I think, for the first time in a very long time, David's going to have to figure out who he really is." My fourth flashback hit that night, as I gazed at the moon through my bedroom window. The following weeks were a whirlwind. David rented an apartment close to Melissa's house to make the children's transition easier. They'd spend 1 week with each parent. He started visiting me regularly, sometimes alone, sometimes with Marcus and Chloe. On one of those visits, while the kids were playing in the backyard with Mark, David asked me an unexpected question. "Mom, would you like to move back in with me?" I was genuinely surprised. "In your new apartment?" "Yeah, it's a 3-bedroom. One for me, one for the kids when they're with me, and one that could be yours. I know it's not ideal, but..." "David," I interrupted gently, cutting off his nervous explanation. "I appreciate the offer. Truly. But I think we need some time apart." He looked visibly hurt. "You haven't forgiven me." "It's not about forgiveness, sweetheart. It's about space. You're starting your life over, figuring out who you are outside of the marriage. I'm finding out who I am in this new phase, too. We both need this time. But what if I need you? What about the kids? I smiled, touching his face like I used to when he was little. A warm, reassuring gesture. I'll always be around. Always. But not under the same roof, at least for now. He nodded, a flicker of understanding finally crossing his features. You're happy here, aren't you? I'm finding my way, I answered honestly, my voice imbued with a quiet confidence. Becca and Mark gave me more than just a room. They gave me space to be myself again. That afternoon, after David and the kids left, I kept thinking about how life truly comes full circle. 5 months ago, I was being forced out of my son's house on my birthday. Today, I was graciously turning down an invitation to move back in with him. It wasn't about revenge or lingering resentment. It was simply the profound recognition that sometimes we need to step away, to create distance, in order to truly find ourselves again. 6 months have passed since that fateful birthday. Today I'm turning 68, and the difference couldn't be starker, more profound. Becca and Mark threw a small, intimate party in the backyard. The treehouse is completely finished. A solid, whimsical structure with real windows, sturdy shelves for books, and even a small telescope that Mark installed for Marcus, who has developed a fervent interest in astronomy. Marcus and Chloe had spent the night before with me, helping decorate the backyard with colorful string lights and balloons. David arrived early to help with preparations, bringing the cake, chocolate with strawberries, my all-time favorite. To my surprise, other guests started arriving. Neighbors I'd met in the last few months, friends from the book club, classmates from the gardening course. People who'd organically, genuinely entered my life in this rich new phase. When everyone sang happy birthday, I looked around, my gaze sweeping over the faces of those gathered, and felt a profound wave of gratitude wash over me. Not for what I'd lost, but for the unexpected, abundant joy I'd found. It wasn't the life I'd meticulously planned, but it was a life overflowing with genuine connections, rich and deeply fulfilling. After the guests finally left, I lingered on the porch with Becca, Mark, and David. The kids were already fast asleep, utterly exhausted after a day of joyous, unbridled play. Thank you for today, I said, looking at each of them, my voice thick with emotion. It was perfect. You deserve it, Aunt Barbara, Becca replied, squeezing my hand warmly. David seemed thoughtful, his gaze distant, lost in his own reflections. Mom, remember what you told me the day before my wedding? About not losing who I am in the process of becoming better. I nodded, surprised he remembered that conversation, a memory from so long ago. I think that's exactly what happened. I got lost, but I'm finding myself again. I'm happy for you, son. He smiled, a smile I hadn't seen in years. Open, genuine, entirely without the desperate weight of constant approval he used to seek from Melissa. And you, Mom. Did you find yourself too? I looked up at the vast star-studded sky, at the serene moon shining down on us. The same moon that had illuminated so many nights of my life. Nights of soaring joy, of searing pain, of profound loss, and of hopeful new beginnings. You know, David, I mused, my voice soft with the wisdom of years. At 68, I've discovered something truly interesting. We're never truly lost. Sometimes we just need a new path to remind us who we've always been. Mark raised his glass in a silent toast, and we all joined him. In the quiet sanctity of that night, under the sprawling canopy of stars and surrounded by people who loved me for who I was, not for my utility or convenience. I felt a deep, abiding peace. Sometimes you need to be pushed out of one place to find another where you truly belong. Sometimes a painful ending is just the start of something unexpectedly beautiful. And I, Barbara Miller at 68, was ready for that new beginning.